I'm Victor Fernandez of Fernandez Fit, and I'm here to show you why fitness is our business. Hello and welcome once again to the Fitness is Our Business podcast, the show that helps busy professionals thrive in their demanding personal and professional lives by taking control of their health and well-being. I'm your host, Victor Fernandez. Thanks for joining me as you do each and every week. I truly appreciate it. Now, if this is your first time checking out the show, welcome. I just want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But if you've been following for a while, your first, second, third, umpteenth time, I want you to do me a solid, and that's make sure to subscribe to the show and share it far and wide, because many more people need to learn that fitness is our business. I'm excited to introduce my next guest, and as you can see, he's already on camera, so we've already eliminated the surprise factor here. Because I'm excited to bring him on because he will bring a combination of integrity and humor to the show. If you know the other face on camera already and the tagline, Matty Gets You Home, then you know already who he is and what he does in the mortgage industry as well as throughout the Cape Fear community. But if you don't, here's some of what you'll learn. That home ownership is about securing a life-changing foundation to provide stability, pride, and a sense of belonging. And given the importance of this life-changing moment in people's lives, Matt is committed to his conviction that conducting business with honesty, transparency, and ethical principles is not just the right thing to do, it's the only way to build lasting relationships and trust with those he serves. That same commitment permeates all areas of his life, especially to being a good person serve as his compass to guiding every interaction and decision, as well as believing in the power of community and lifting people up. And there's also his mortgage-related humor, just a little tease, because I'm sure we'll get into that. But for now, please welcome to the show, Matt Earley. Matt, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Victor. Happy to be here.
We'll appreciate having you on. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, this is a rarity to have both host and guest in the same room at the same time. It's only happened once or twice before, and they share the same last name as me, so they're already living here.
Thank you for showering, by the way.
Well, I appreciate it. I definitely did. It wasn't long before we came on the show, but I did shower. But talk a little bit about, obviously, we've gotten to know each other. You're one of the first people I met when we first moved to this area now 3 years ago. It's amazing how time has flown by. And I know we say this phrase a lot, what you see is what you get. But with you, that's truly what we see. Just talk about the importance, not just what you do in the business world, but what you do personally speaking through your commitment to the community and how those two really come together.
I mean, I just live by the thought of, you got to believe in what you're doing. So, I think that's a huge thing that all of us, we look at other people, we see things that we want to do. But believing in it is the biggest part. So, you've got to stand behind, you've got to figure out your core values, where your core stands, what you want to do. A lot of folks in my industry say the same thing. I even did when I first started out, just helping people with home ownership. It's rewarding, and it is rewarding. But at the same time, what makes it rewarding? Is it the money? Well, the money's always there. The money's definitely a driving factor, but money can only get you so far. It's being able to solve problems, being able to help folks. And, that's it, is actually being able to help folks. Whether it's a divorce refinance, whether it's first-time home buyer, or whether it's that person trying to figure out whether or not buying an investment property is the right fit for them. Or a second home, even a second home, which I can't wait to have one of those. How about you?
Same here. Maybe one day. I know, obviously, for you and really any industry that we're in, whether it's mortgages, whether it's health and fitness, you have to take that personal approach because, frankly, if you put the money first, it's never going to work. You have to put the people first and the service you're providing or the product you're providing and really put their intentions and their goals and their wishes and their needs first if we want to be successful at this, because ultimately, whatever we're doing out here, it has one common thread, and that's the people we help.
No, it's true. And it's funny because I know my first job out of college, it was a sales job. And my boss was probably the best salesperson ever. He could sell, I don't know what the analogy. Everybody would always
say. A ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves is the one I always turn to.
Ice to an Eskimo. Ice to an Eskimo, yeah. I mean, he was great. I mean, he taught me so many different ways to sell things. And, I noticed on our very first sale, he had an allergic reaction to a cat, and he did a hard close. And these people bought the product and they didn't want it. And the product was a security system. They did not want it, but he closed it anyway. He closed it, they bought it, and they hated it. And they were under contract for 3 years. And what was funny, I think the funniest part about the whole deal was even though they didn't want it, and I kept in touch with them for 3 years, they referred me clients. I was like, they absolutely hated that they signed a contract, but they really liked the fact that I kept in touch with them and that I was transparent. And I kind of used that, I had the opportunity to learn how to do a hard close, and I just never really, the way I've always looked at it is you've got to educate people, you take care of people, and you treat people like you would your own family. And hopefully you treat your family right. I mean, that's the big thing.
That's the one caveat there, yes.
And that's how anybody I refer to in my business, in my industry, there's no gimmicks, there's no kickbacks that I receive. It's because I know that at the end of the day, they're the people that I trust, the people that I would send my own mother to, and I've done that. I've given my mother referrals before. I mean, that's it. Is just having the people that are in your inner circle that you can depend on and that are just as honest as you are.
And you have to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
You have to be able to put your head down in your pillow believing that you did the right thing. And you see so many people in any industry, really, who are, the money's number one. That's the number one driving force. And they don't stop and think, well, how do I make that? Well, by being, from a service mindset first.
And that was it too. My second boss that I had, or my second supervisor out of college. I remember one day he looked at me, I was doing well in the security industry. I was selling a lot of security systems and I always wanted more and more and more. And he just sat me down one day and he's like, listen, you're doing a great job. He's like, but how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Exactly. And, he took the moment to, kind of pause and he said the one bite at a time. And that kind of stuck with me. He said, if you do the right things, you keep on doing the right things over and over again, just doing the right things, you're not going to win every time. But in time, you are going to be wealthy in two different ways. You're going to be successful because you can sleep at night. You did the right thing. And then the money is going to be there. It's going to be there.
I know for you, and you shared a little bit earlier that, when you first started out in the business world, take us through, and I've heard this story, quite a few times, but take my audience through just the progression of you went from, I said security systems to now the mortgage industry and everything in between.
So, when I was in college, my dad was always a believer in hard work, and I put myself through college. So I worked throughout college and I worked at a restaurant. When I graduated from college, I, had no desire to work in a restaurant. Thought I may have wanted to own one. No, I definitely don't. But working in the restaurant industry it was a great experience. I think everybody should do that at some point in their life. Deal with somebody, high pressure, high volume. You live at the beach, you're not busy 1 minute, the next minute you have a line out the door. Yeah, and you have to tell somebody that is hungry and has a crying baby that they're not going to be able to get a table for 45 minutes. See how angry somebody gets. Or, you have a cook walk out mid-shift and you've got people that have been sitting there 45 minutes for food and you have to go out and talk to them or keep them entertained while they're getting angry because, again, they're hungry. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was so I went from that to, I moved up to Raleigh. My wife was in law school up there and I didn't have a job at the time. And the first job I could get was home security sales. And it was 100% commission. Not much different than waiting tables. Waiting tables, we made $213. The whole $213 went to taxes. So, your paychecks were only like $50. So if you weren't a good waiter, you just wouldn't survive. And the home security job, it was rough the first couple of months. And then I started doing really well. And I realized I did not want to do that forever. And I wound up going from there to an LED manufacturer. But in the meantime, I go back to that restaurant job. I'd waited on this one guy for a long time. He kept on trying to tell me, he's like, you should be in the mortgage industry. You would do well. It's like, you have the right moral compass. You can talk to people. You can deal with high pressure situations. He's like, you would do well. So long story short, I got offered an opportunity of a lifetime to work for an LED manufacturer in Durham. And it was a great job. I was on an executive team. I was still living up in Raleigh. He was down here in Wilmington. And I worked there for several years, and they dissolved my division. They offered me, they set me up with my next job when they dissolved our team, which isn't common to get laid off, get a severance package, and get taken care of for your next job.
Yeah, good luck with that, doing that again, especially in today's market.
Oh, gosh. At that time, I was like, I'm going to make the leap. I talked to him. He's like, oh, you can work remotely. You can work 100% remotely. At that time, internet was, had hit a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it wasn't that huge. And he's like, you can work remotely. They were like, listen, you can always get licensed in mortgages. They're like, give this job a shot, because not everybody gets this opportunity, and we just set you up with a job and a severance package. They're like, if it doesn't work out, go get your mortgage license, do the mortgage thing. And I wound up continuing in energy efficiency for 5 years. And just, COVID, everything during COVID, life changed during COVID. And I got burnt out at that job. And I wound up getting my mortgage license, talked to my wife. At that time, that fellow owned his own business in the mortgage industry. And that's how I got into the mortgage industry. Was I just kind of got burnt out at the job. And I was like, hey, is it cool if I go and start doing mortgages? She's like, you better go in full force.
Man, I know that conversation very well.
But yeah, so I mean, I've been doing it ever since. And I know my old boss at that time. I told them, I was going to leave, and they promoted me to corporate. They didn't want me to go. And when I made my decision, I was going to go after the big promotion. She again said the same thing my wife said. And I still keep in touch with her to this day. Obviously my wife, but also my old boss. And we just keep in touch just to check in on each other, see how everybody's doing. And that's it. Is, when you leave a job, you don't have to leave on a bad note. Mm-hmm. It's I've always said, my dad always taught us, you got to pay the piper. I'm an analogy guy. I love analogies and paying the piper. If you're unhappy with something, you need to let folks know at some point. And when you leave, tell them to their face and tell them why. It doesn't always have to be angry. Make sure you write it down. If it doesn't go the right way, then just do a slow pause. Just be quiet, respectful, and leave. Because at the end of the day, things could get heated. If they do, it's just not worth it.
You never know when those people can come in handy and really help you out in a situation, because anything's possible that can change. I look at myself, at 47 years old, I was unemployed for the first time in my adult life when COVID hit and everything shut down. And, I had, and my bosses at the gym where I work, God bless them, like, hey, I told them I was going to start my own business. And at the very beginning, the goal was, I'm just going to do it on the side and still continue working this job. But when COVID hits, like, well, nothing's guaranteed. So I may as well try to get this off the ground as well as I possibly can. And to their credit, they were like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. You got to eat, you got to survive, you got to pay the bills, you got to support your family. And that's what I was able to do. And there are people that, I still keep in contact with to this day, several years later, and it could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah. And it's cool that it motivated us in that way, and that it motivated you. I mean, it's not only flexibility of job. That was one of the reasons I was looking at it, was flexibility. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were planning on having children. We did. And I was covering a large swath of area. And her job does not allow her to, work remotely at times. And mine can be a little bit more flexible. So if I need to go pick up my son, sometimes I can shift my schedule around to do that, where she not necessarily.
Yeah, same here. I know obviously your child is much younger than our youngest, but at the same time, he goes to a school where he has, no busing, has to, be driven there, be picked up. And my wife works out and about, working with special needs, and she's constantly on the road somewhere in the Cape Fear area. So to be able to work from home, work remotely, kind of set my own schedule, it definitely makes life a heck of a lot easier.
It is funny whenever I run into Shelly. It's usually in the Mayfair area.
Yeah. She does frequent that area. She loves Buff City soap, so she's constantly in that area, yes.
I'm always like, what are you doing here?
Don't let her fool you. She loves Buff City soap. She's there at least once a week.
I don't even know where that is.
Oh, well, she knows exactly where that is. And I've been in there once, and not my cup of tea, but if it makes her happy, why not?
What is it?
It's soaps,
Wow.
soaps and scents and, all that type. I don't want to say girly stuff because that'll probably get me in trouble. But really, it is.
Anything to do with hair?
Not that I saw.
I was like, because that's why we probably don't.
Not that would help us. I think we're too far past the point of no return to worry about all that stuff. We just shave it and life goes on.
We'll have to check out Buff City Soaps. It's a good plug for them.
We'll have to have them on next. So I know one of the components here, and it's obviously who I service, who I work with entrepreneurs and business owners, career-driven people like us, who we grind, we push, we put our nose to the grindstone, all those cliches that are out there, and at times to our detriment, to our own personal detriment, our health and well-being. I know you're a member of I think the 5 a.m. club that you work out in, probably even earlier than that, and you're consistent, you're religious about it, as am I. Talk about you're obviously they hear it from me, but I think if they hear it from me all the time, the message kind of gets lost because they hear it from me all the time. From your perspective, how important is what you do on a daily basis, taking care of yourself, to your personal well-being with your family, but also your professional well-being with work that you do?
I think it's very important because life gets stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Life gets really stressful. And at times, in our jobs, we may not pack lunch. I forgot to pack lunch today. Thank goodness there was a Subway. But, at the same time, we don't always pack lunch. Sometimes we grab the unhealthy thing. We make the unhealthy decision. Talking to one of my friends the other day, I was like, I stopped at a gas station and there was a protein cookie and there was one of those little Debbie's with cream in the middle. I got both.
I think they kind of cancel each other out. So I think you're right back where you started.
And those bad habits, it's good. It's good if you do them once in a blue.
Yeah.
Like once in a long time. But then sometimes it's really easy just to, a habit is something you repeat over and over and over again. And, when the pants start getting tighter, that's usually when we realize that we need to lose weight. It's a good sign that we can see that. Mm-hmm. But what you can't see is what's going on the insides. And that's always been something that concerns me. I mean, I'm a strong believer in trying to take as little medicine as possible.
Same here.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think you should get all your vaccines and you should listen to your doctor. You should really listen to your doctor because they went to school for it. But at the same time, there's a lot of chemicals out there that just treat the symptom and they don't have the cure.
Right.
And, that's what a lot of it is treating the symptom and not the cure. And the root to all of that is health and well-being and, stress. You can relieve stress by going to the gym. It also helps clear your mind, clear your thought process. Then the obvious one is the health benefit. Mm-hmm. It's when I first met Victor, I think I was 268 pounds, 270 pounds. And Victor and I were talking about working out, and I've always loved working out, but I gained the COVID 50. And I've always been a bigger guy, not in height. I'm not a tall guy. But I've always been right around 210, 215, since my high school days, unless I was wrestling. When I wrestled 160 to 189, which is a lot of weight to cut.
Yeah, that is.
But, when I first met Victor, we were talking about working out, and I'd been out of the gym for a little bit and still paying my membership. And it really kind of, I forget what exactly it was he said to me, but it motivated me to go back into the gym. And I really like how you say fitness is our business. You talk about your health journey. And, I've kept the 50 plus pounds off in the last, it's been 2.5 years now, 2.5, 3 years. And it's great that my pants fit now and my underwear fits.
That always helps. Don't have to buy new clothing. Yeah. Saves money.
It's also too, it's being able to move and being able to play with my son. And I look at in the gym, the reason why I pay for a gym membership or pay for training is your trainer knows how to not get you hurt. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go in there and be Hercules. You don't have to go in there and lift so much that you're going to hurt yourself. Yeah. Because, the older you get, the harder it is to repair those injuries. But why you want to work with a trainer or somebody, like Victor, is because of the form. Because you're going to tend, if you use your back, you might not hurt it the first time, but you might hurt it the 10th time you do that exercise incorrectly. And he's going to look at you. He's going to tell you what you're doing wrong so that you don't hurt yourself. Then the other side of it is when I look at going to the gym, looking at some of these elderly folks. We live at the beach. Yeah. And there's one guy at the gym. He's in his 80s. And he looks great. And I know he thinks I'm joking around with him, but he looks, I mean, I strive to be like this man when I'm in my 80s. He walks around, he lifts weights. He's not, he's not huge. You can tell he never did steroids, but he does not look a day over 60.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't move like a man a day over 60, but he's in his 80s. He's told me he's in his 80s because we tease each other at the gym, and it's usually something about, oh man, hey, are you okay?
He's saying that to you.
Oh, I'm saying that to him too sometimes, We'll tease each other back and forth, but it's like, I see him, he's in his 80s. Then there's a 95-year-old couple that goes to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
and they walk on the treadmill every single day together in the afternoon. And at 95 years of age, get on the treadmill and walk around. Now, he does look like he's in his 80s. But again, he's almost 100.
Yeah.
He's almost 100.
Yeah.
He talks sometimes, and he'll talk about, the post-Great Depression years. And it's like, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where, for my fitness journey, that's one of my goals. I would say, the obvious one. I want to fit in my pants.
Yeah. It helps.
And then it's the health. It's the health and maintenance. You're friends with him too, Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
Dr. Paul has always said, so he's a chiropractor. And I used to tease Dr. Paul because I didn't really understand chiropractic. And Paul told me that, it's like getting your oil changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing goes for fitness. It's just making sure you're using those components. You're stretching properly. You're lifting the weights and doing the correct motions so that down the road, your car doesn't break down, because this car, you can't rebuild it.
Yeah.
You can't replace it. You get one of them. So I think it's really important.
Oh, 100%. And I'm glad you shared that, because I look at, we all have the people we look up to. And for myself, I look up to people like you who do the work, get up early, make the sacrifices to make it happen. I look at my own coach who's, 61, 62 years old. Same thing, does not look a day over 40. He looks like he's chiseled at a marble. I hate him. I tell him that all the time. but he's put in the work for decades. And that's why I hired him, because as much knowledge as I have, he's probably forgotten more than I will ever know. And that's why you hire somebody like that. And I tell people that all the time. We've been there. So many of us have been there, done that. We've made the mistakes. We've suffered the injuries. We've done the wrong things that don't benefit us. We've all been there. So if we can help people, same thing in the mortgage industry. It's not a fun, process to go through. And it can be scary. It can be daunting, especially if you don't know what's going on and how things work. So when you have somebody like yourself to be able to show people the way and show them that it, doesn't necessarily have to be a fun process, but it can certainly be a beneficial process, and you can learn a lot. That's huge. It's a huge aspect of it.
Well, it's finding a solution.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you correlate the two, it's just finding a solution. My goal, I like to eat cheeseburgers.
As do I. Pizza's more my thing, though.
And I like beer.
I don't drink too much of that anymore. I just had a personal preference. Really.
I just hit 40. It's like, I've got to start cutting back, because it's like,
40 is way in my rear view mirror.
Oh, at the same time, it's like, your solution to that, if you like to eat unhealthy, well, you got to get on the treadmill, and if you don't get on the treadmill, then you got to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And, the same thing applies, one guy I'm friends with, he asked me, I've been in the mortgage industry now for several years, and he's like, why don't you work for a bank? And I told him, I was like, oh, that's easy. Solutions. Mm-hmm. I like solutions. I'm a solutions-based guy. If there's a problem, I like to be able to offer a solution, find a solution. And if I don't have the solution, maybe figure out where they can find that solution to that problem. And buying a home, it's not always cut and dry. There might be a solution. You might be self-employed. You might have to use bank statement options. You might have to,
Oh, I know that well.
You might have to go the profit and loss route. There's different options down that avenue, and they're not always the prettiest, but then there's the goal setting. That's the hugest thing, and that's the thing I even myself struggle with, is goal setting. You just have to do it. You set a goal and your target and figure out how you're going to get to that goal, and then, figure out what your next goal is going to be. That's it. I think they both kind of correlate, goal setting solutions.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's the knowledge. We always talk about knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And that's all this is. I mean, as a health and fitness coach, I don't look at it through the eyes of a health and fitness coach. I look at it through the eyes of the former me, the old me, who was 250 pounds and made all the mistakes in the book. And so whenever I have a conversation, and I know you've been on the other side of the mortgage table as well. I mean, you just bought a house recently, so you understand both sides of the coin, as do I from the health and fitness perspective. I know when you have a conversation with somebody who's looking to buy a house or an investment property, whatever it may be, there's something that they say that it resonates with you because you've experienced that. Same thing with me. There isn't a conversation I haven't had with anybody, whether they choose to work with me or not, where I can't say, oh man, I know how that feels. I remember when, and able to share that story. Talk about that side of it where, obviously mortgage industry, there's a lot that goes on. And let's face it, for somebody like me who's not in the mortgage industry, it can be dry.
Yeah.
But talk about how you personalize it to really get people to understand not only why they're doing what they're doing, but how they're doing it and what they're doing it for.
So I do video. I integrate video into my process, whether it's just a video, sending a video just to review things like, hey, we looked at your application. If you pay these bills down, do the X, Y, and Z, we may be able to not only improve your credit score, but help you with your debt to income. If I just talk to you over the phone, like I just did right now, without a visual in front of you, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's daunting. It really is.
Or even, I was talking to my boss the other day about, the closing disclosures and all that. There's a lot of line items out there. And, when I started out in the industry, I was a broker. Now I'm a broker hybrid. So we're called an independent mortgage banker. I have broker channels, but a lot of the stuff we do, we underwrite in-house and self-fund. And I like that process because it allows us to close quicker. It allows us to do upfront underwriting and guarantee pre-approval over pre-qualification. But with that stated, as far as all that goes, having options is huge. Sorry, we're kind of just free rolling. I kind of lost my train of thought midway. I was like, wait a second.
Well, I know we talk about that a lot. I mean, obviously we belong to some of the same networking, groups and chapters. And, I've seen Matt do his presentation several times now, and it all comes down to, like you said, having those options that if, route A doesn't work for you, then route B or C or D or Z, it might work best for you. And he's going to be able to give you those options and really lay them out in English as to how that all works.
And I remember now what I was talking about. So
I was giving you a few seconds to figure it out.
I appreciate it. So the closing disclosure. So my boss and I were talking the other day. There are different line items that you can disclose differently. So when I was a broker, I was taught, just to ask for the copy of the closing disclosure from, or your loan estimate from your competitor. Well, you can disclose your underwriting fee or your administrative fees as underwriting fees, administrative fees, as loan origination, application, commitment fee, and now verification of employment or verification fee as well. Well, for the layman, it's like, what?
What is all that? All these fees? What is all these different line items? Yeah.
And one company might market, we have no commitment fee, but guess what they do have? Origination. Or they might say, we have no commitment fee, we have no origination fee, but guess what they do have? They've got an administrative fee. At the end of the day, the fees are pretty much the same. Then the other side of it is the good old rate talk. People will be like, well, I'm rate shop. Well, you shouldn't be rate shop. What you need to be is APR shop. The APR is the actual cost of that rate. I actually had this discussion this morning. A competitor who I'm friendly with, he sent out a flyer to a realtor. The realtor reached out to me and was like, hey, does this look legit? I said, yeah. I said, that guy's a stand-up guy. So the big thing you want to see is on the rate sheet. So when you're looking at the rate, it always has to disclose APR. APR is where you hide all the fees. So when you look at an actual physical rate sheet, it goes all the way from, let's say, 5.99, 5.5, maybe in the fours, all the way up to your positive, where you get money back from the lender. But down at that lower end, you're paying. You can pay, up to $20,000 for that rate. Well, if you're doing that, it's usually going to be like 0.75 difference. So meaning let's say you're at a 4.99, you're going to be somewhere closer to 5% on your APR. Maybe even at 5%, or I'm sorry, you're going to be, so 4.99, you're going to be closer to the 6 mark at that point on your APR. Whereas if there's no fees for points, that's what we call them as discount points, which usually equates to about an eighth of rate. So it's not much. So it's 1 discount point. So 1% of the loan amount equals 1/8 of the percent in rate. It should vary somewhere between 0.15 to 0.2. So when I was looking at what he presented, I was like, no, those are pretty normal rates. Yes, I could beat them. I could go down the rate sheet, but the APR is where you need to focus at. It's at 0.15 to 0.2%. Like, this guy, he did a great job. He's giving you par rate. Now, if you want it to look super shiny, yeah, just ask him to adjust and put a 5.99 on there. At 5.99 at a 6.6, or and I'm just using hypotheticals just for educational purposes. I have to say that because my license.
You heard that, folks. We're all legit. We're all legit here.
It's hypothetical for educational purposes only.
There you go.
Rate depends on credit, subject, property.
We can read the entire disclaimer. But that's what you need. You need somebody who's going to tell it to you in plain English and not just say it to you in plain English, but apply it to what specifically you're looking for. Because, just like with health and fitness, no two people are alike, so no two plans can be alike. Same thing when it comes to, looking to buy a mortgage. What works for me is going to be different that works for somebody else. And having somebody take the time to do that, to really explain it really in layman's terms, it's huge. It makes a daunting, overwhelming process seem less daunting and overwhelming.
Yeah, and also too, having the crucial conversations too. When somebody doesn't qualify.
Yeah.
Not just telling them, hey, yeah, you're good. And then being like, well, no, you're not. Like down the road.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, you might be able to get it to work. You're going to be really, really tight. If we put it off a little bit, we can do that. You're going to be really, really tight. And what's your budget like for moving? What's your budget like for the things you're going to have to put inside this home? What does that look like? Having those real conversations and truly developing a plan.
Yeah.
Because it's not just analogy again. It's not like going to the store and buying a gallon of milk. You're making the biggest purchase perhaps of your life. And it's, again, you can circle it back to health. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of stuff about, just kind of staying happy. And they talk about how health is so important to that. And how going to the gym, how even working out on your own, and seeing those improvements, seeing those little improvements, how it not only helps the chemical balance in your brain, but it also helps you just everywhere, whether it's your relationships at home, being happy, being content, and being present.
No, 100%. 100%. We'd be remiss. We're going to wrap things up here in the next few minutes, but I would be remiss to not talk about really one of his calling cards that everybody looks forward to seeing when he does presentations, his elevator pitches, all that. I was kind of hoping.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping.
Yeah.
You have to understand, folks, Matt has mortgage-related humor T-shirts for every occasion. Yeah, and normally he would be in a button-down shirt, and he would unbutton the shirt, and he would reveal, he puts the fun in funding. I speak fluent mortgage. There's a bunch of them.
Oh,
I could sit here the next 5 or 10 minutes and reel them off. But
full of sugar and spice and mortgage advice.
There you go. There you go.
But so it's funny that you mentioned it because I don't even think you saw this story. So we were in a networking group, and I stand up every week, and I pull open usually a button-down shirt, not like this. It's Friday, so I'm wearing a polo.
Casual Friday.
Polo and shorts. I never wear shorts. But long story short, Victor was in Portugal. And the week prior, I was in New York. I flew up to New York for, we do a shed weekend with my in-laws, where we eat meat and make fun of each other all weekend.
Sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. But, I've gotten so many of these mortgage shirts that now they've pretty much replaced all of my T-shirts. So I was wearing an I Love Mortgages shirt on the plane. And the flight attendant looks at me as I'm getting on the plane. She goes, I love Portugal too. Portugal is so much fun. And I'm like, it's mortgages. So the entire flight up to New York, all of the flight attendants were coming over and saying, "I love Portugal." The entire flight. So the next week when I went back to our meeting and Victor wasn't there, I wore the same shirt I wore on that flight, and I was like, "Guys, funny story." And it's crazy. He's actually in Portugal.
He's actually there.
But
I'm sorry I missed it, even though I was there.
And I think I forgot to tell you about that story.
No, you did tell me. When I got back, you told me that story.
I was like, "Oh man."
Making mortgages fun, folks. You know, if you can make mortgages fun, you can make anything fun.
Well, it's just, it's like, yeah, that's my big thing is it's like, there's so many numbers thrown at you. There's so many different things and, so many different acronyms that you think would mean one thing and they really mean something completely different. Mm-hmm. And it's a little boring. So I just try to spice it up. The videos I usually send to my clients, try to keep them at 2 minutes in video email. Unless it's the disclosures, those are 5.
Those are a lot longer, a lot more labor intensive.
I point to the speed at the bottom right side.
Oh, Lord, this has been a whole bunch of fun. I mean, Matt and I always have conversations. This just happens to be the first one we've done on camera. So obviously what you see, again, like I said earlier in the show, what you see is what you get, and then what you're seeing is what you normally get in our conversations anyway. But go ahead and share, who you work with, what you do, where they can find you on social media or anywhere else, because there's always people out there that are looking for mortgages, and you're the person I know that can help them.
So my social media is Matty Gets You Home. So if you look for me on Instagram, on Facebook, I'm Matty Gets You Home. I try to do one weekly update. So at the beginning of the week, I'll do a weekly rate forecast, just talking about simplifying it, what's going to happen for the week ahead. Then on Fridays, I do a video recapping it. During the middle of the week, I'll try to, send something out important. Like this past week was about pre-approval versus pre-qualification. Mm-hmm. Best part about buying a home is looking at them. The worst part's the paperwork that I get to deal with. So just your best bet is when you're looking at it, regardless of what anybody tells you, just get all the paperwork knocked out, get it out of the way so that you can focus on the important things in life, like moving, painting, and hanging pictures, and living in your new home. You wouldn't buy a Christmas tree from IKEA. Why would you go online for your mortgage now? Sorry.
No, you're right. You may as well have somebody who has your best interests at heart right there, doing the legwork, if you will, doing the really hard work, the time-consuming work, and you can take that off your mind, knowing that Matt's taking care of you, and everything will be done, when it needs to be done, and all you have to do is go sign on the dotted line and start your life in your new home.
And I am licensed in 4 states, so I'm licensed to originate in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Tennessee. So where I live is right near the South Carolina border. Tennessee, I got that license because I started working with a builder out there a while back. And Florida was because I was working with the client, and it was during the post-COVID, interest rates were really low, and he said that they were thinking about going to Florida. And I'd been working with him for a year at that point, and I looked into how hard it was to get the Florida license. By the way, super easy once you get your federal license. All they want is your money. I was like, guess what? I have my license there now. And so I'm licensed in Florida too. I've done a couple things down there, not too much. But mostly I keep that license in place for people moving back. There's a lot of folks moving back from North Carolina to Florida, or from Florida to North Carolina. And having somebody local is important. Even if you're just moving to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. I'm right here near Myrtle Beach, but I also too originate loans throughout the state. Done quite a few loans in Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro. I just closed one in between Charlotte and here, which is, that's a really big piece of land.
Yeah, that's a healthy chunk of land there.
But yeah, it's fun. And, that's the biggest thing is you got to have fun at what you do and, make it a little bit of fun or funny at times. Because I think that's important too.
100%. Matt, I appreciate you being on. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time now, and
thank you.
I'm glad we were able to get it done. And just for those of you that know, we actually Matt is now my unofficial IT guy now at Fernandez Fit, because we had to kind of rearrange some things. Like I said, this is very rare to have both, myself and my guest in the same place at the same time, normally done remotely. So we had to kind of finagle some things. And I thought I was pretty tech savvy. I'm not in comparison to Matt. And he kind of figured things out, and it all turned out well. So I appreciate that help as well.
Oh, no. Hey, thank you again for having me on. I'm super stoked to be on here. And, for those of you who don't know, this man looks beautiful with a mustache.
Well, you know what? Before we wrap things up, let's talk about that. I apologize for not bringing that up.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're both actively involved in this, Matt, much longer than I have been. Matt brought me into it. Mustaches for Kids, which comes up here in November, I believe.
So the planning phase is starting now.
Yes, planning phase now.
I've got to reach out to the Growth Council about we're now kind of expanding the region. So we're going to we are growing into Brunswick County. So Mustaches for Kids was started, 22 years ago by a bunch of guys that just wanted to do something good for the community. They didn't have a sense of direction. They all kind of wanted to do different charities to help children. And they all agreed on one, and it was Make-A-Wish.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started this thing, a bunch of surfer guys, and they were like, 2 weeks into November, a week into November, depending on how Christmas falls and Thanksgiving. That's how they started. So it's not Movember. And you shave your face completely, and then just nothing cool lip to lip for about 5 weeks. The goal is you go home at Thanksgiving time, and you've got a nice little dirty patch above your lip. And you raise donations and awareness for local nonprofits that help children. Initially, so it is still almost 100% of everything donated goes to the local nonprofits in southeastern North Carolina. But several years back, we raised too much money, and we found out that you can't be a fundraiser after like 30 grand. Thankfully, one of the guys on the Stash Council is an accountant and was able to set us up as a nonprofit. And still, I believe it's something like 99.4% of all of the proceeds go to local charities in our region. So the big one is Make-A-Wish. So Make-A-Wish, they get a good chunk. We use their marketing. Everybody can identify with it. But then there's smaller ones. Like you have Carousel Center, which is a child advocacy group. And, they help victims of sex crimes. They help victims help them address their accusers in court. They help them with the social aspect and integrating back into society. And, when they've had something traumatic like that happen. Then there's, there's so many. There's about 15 of them. I could rattle them all off. But those are two big ones that, a lot of people are familiar with in our area. There's, I don't know why the names left me. There's one. So one of them was formerly JDRF. They changed their name. They help families with children that have diabetes. They help them get insulin. Then there's another one where they help put ramps on beaches so that people with disabilities can go on the beach. It's really neat, and all of it stays local, and that's the big thing. And there's different chapters throughout the country. You can look up Mustaches for Kids. We're lucky in our area to have one of the guys that actually physically started the first one that runs around like a referee. But it's neat how it's grown across the country and how it really helps the local communities and, where we are. It helps, our future. And you look creepy and you have fun. Yeah. So where that other small percentage goes through, that doesn't go to the nonprofit, nobody gets paid. It's all 100% volunteer. We get cool T-shirts, really cool T-shirts. And then they also try to help just promote these local nonprofits, like the Children's Museum in Wilmington is another one. They are another one that receives funds from Mustache Kids every year. But it's cool because you do, I was 22 when I first started doing it. One of my friends was a recipient for Make-A-Wish. And she had told me before she passed away that I should do it because I had thought about it. And our slogan that year, before internet was huge, it was "My name is Earl." They would have gotten in so much trouble today because they literally had "My name is Earl" printed on the shirt. And I was just like, man, that's so cool. So that's what got me roped in. And she had told me, she's like, that's so cool. You should totally do it. And, that first year, I think we raised like maybe $8,000. This last year, we went down a little bit, but it's because there was the hurricane that hit the mountains of North Carolina. And so a lot of the companies that help us in our area, they've really focused on helping the communities up in the mountains. One of the big ones is Megacorp. So Megacorp really helped. They helped get supplies up to the mountains. The other one is Wrightsville Beach Brewing and Brunswick Beer and Cider. He did a food drive. Judd, the guy that owns it, he's on the Growth Council. He helped do a food drive. Megacorp kicked in not only funds, but they helped get everything up there in big tractor trailers. So this past year we raised only $104,000 just for growing a mustache and making fun of each other. The year before we raised about $140,000. This year we should easily hit our $1 million mark of raising $1 million and giving $1 million away to local nonprofits that focus on helping children in our community.
There's the community right there. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, how important the community is to this man, and he's been here a long time, really since your last year of high school, and there you have. So I'm glad you mentioned the mustache, because we would have been remiss. But I do think we'll need to do another episode specifically about mustaches for kids closer to when it opens up in the fall. Because it's a great cause. I'm glad Matt got me involved in it. I'm going to get my son Nick involved in it because he's got the full beard as well. So it's always a lot of fun. It's a lot of really good people doing good in the community, and you can't ask for more than that.
And it started out just from doing good. I know Ryan, it's funny because I remember emailing Ryan back in the day, and he still remembers it, which I'm like, wow, it's been almost 20 years. And Ryan's like, he's like, look at this room of people. These are all good human beings. And it's like, we all just, it's not like we just try to help the community. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's important it's not, life is it's not always about taking, it's about giving. And, giving and receiving, I think that's really an important thing.
100%. This community has done, these last 3 years has done an absolute ton for me, my business, my family, so to be able to give back and just be even a small part of an organization like that, just being a small part of this larger community, it's an absolute no-brainer.
And just being kind.
Yeah.
I think that's what we miss so much in today's society. We're so connected that people sometimes forget. It's just good to be kind.
Yeah, you lose the personal side.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Matt, once again, I'm glad we got to talk about that. We'll definitely have to do a separate episode on as we get closer. But thank you once again for being on the show. This has been great. I always enjoy our conversations.
Oh, likewise. Thank you.
And remember, awesome. Once again, folks, Matt Earley here, from Alcova Mortgage. Obviously for him, he does great work, and we just want to spread the word there as to what he does, what we do, and really just help people understand and be like Matt, be like me, and understand that fitness is our business. Thanks so much for listening. I hope what we've shared on this show truly resonates with you. If you want to learn more about the health and fitness services I provide, head to my website, fernandezfit.com. If you're ready to connect with me about health and fitness coaching, send an email to info@fernandezfit.com or a text to 814-504-7774. And of course, you can find me all across social media, Victor Fernandez 123 on Facebook, Fernandez Fit on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business channel on YouTube. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, always remember, fitness is our business.